The day my parents pretended I never existed was the day I stopped trying to be their daughter. I still remember sitting in front of the TV, watching a glossy interview of my family, my father, my mother, and my younger sister Lily, all smiling, perfect, proud. The interviewer asked, "So, you have one daughter?" My mother nodded without hesitation. "Yes," she said softly, "just one." Just one. They didn't hesitate. They didn't flinch. They erased me like I was a stain on their reputation. My name, the one they gave me, was suddenly forbidden in their perfect world. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't a criminal. My only sin was being different, being inconvenient for their image. That moment felt colder than any rejection I'd ever known. It wasn't just denial. It was a funeral for my existence, broadcast to the world. And as their laughter filled the screen, something inside me died quietly. And something else woke up. "The daughter they erased," I whispered, staring at the reflection of my face on the dark TV screen. "They buried me in silence, but one day, the world would know my name again. People used to say we were the perfect Marsh family. My father, Richard, ran a successful real estate firm. My mother, Margaret, was the social heart of every gathering, and my sister Lily, the golden one, sparkled wherever she went. We lived in a house that always smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume, where smiles were rehearsed and emotions were staged. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But perfection has a price. At dinner, Father would sit at the head of the table, talking about business and reputation. Lily always had something to add, her grades, her charity work, her next modeling shoot. When she spoke, everyone listened. When I tried to join in, silence followed. My words floated in the air for a second, and then disappeared. "Don't interrupt your sister, Elena," Mother would say, smiling but sharp. "She's speaking about something important." I'd nod, pretending it didn't sting. Pretending that being invisible in my own home was normal. Lily was their pride. I was their project, something to fix, not celebrate. My clothes were too plain, my laughter too loud, my dreams too unrealistic. I wanted to be a journalist, to write stories that revealed truth. But in our family, truth was dangerous. "Keep things inside the house," Father used to say. "People respect what they don't know." At family gatherings, everyone played their roles. Mother glided around, complimenting guests. Father bragged about Lily's achievements, and I stood near the wall, smiling just enough to blend in. Grandmother Rose would catch my eye sometimes, a quiet understanding in her look, as if she knew what it felt like to be unseen. Once, during a Sunday lunch, I handed Mother a framed article I'd written for the local paper. She looked at it for a second, then set it aside beside the salt shaker. "That's nice, dear," she murmured, her attention already turning back to Lily's new award. That tiny moment, that half-second dismissal, hurt more than any harsh word could. Still, I kept trying. I dressed the way they liked, smiled when told, and nodded even when I wanted to scream. I believed that if I just behaved perfectly, they'd finally see me, not as a burden, but as their daughter. But love in my house wasn't given. It was earned, and I was always just one mistake away from losing it. Then one evening, as I passed my parents' study, I overheard my mother's voice, soft but sharp, the way she spoke when she thought no one was listening. "She doesn't fit the Marsh image," she whispered. "Sometimes I wish she'd just disappear." I froze outside the door, breath trembling. That was the moment I realized I didn't belong in my own family's story. And soon, they would make sure of it. The tension in our house was never loud, it was quiet, polite, and suffocating. It showed in small ways. An empty seat left beside me at dinner, a birthday card signed without affection, my name missing from family introductions. Little things that told me, "You don't belong here." When I graduated college, the only one in the family to earn a full academic scholarship, Father didn't even attend the ceremony. He was busy closing a deal. Mother sent flowers, but the note inside read, "Don't mention the family name in your speech." Meanwhile, Lily was celebrated for every minor success. She got her first car at 20, I got a lecture about being practical. She missed curfew once and was comforted. I came home late after an internship interview, and Father's voice cut through the living room like a blade. "Journalism? That's gossip with grammar," he said coldly. "You'll embarrass us before you earn a cent." I swallowed my pride, pretending his words didn't pierce through me. "I just want to build something for myself, Dad."
He didn't even look up from his glass. You build nothing without this family's name. Don't forget that.
But what they really meant was, don't outshine Lily. The final straw came one afternoon, when the will of my late grandfather was read. Grandmother Rose sat beside me, her hand trembling as the lawyer unfolded the papers. I wasn't expecting much, but I wasn't prepared for nothing. To Richard and Margaret Marsh, the family estate. To Lily Marsh, a trust fund for education and investments. To Elena Marsh, no mention. My name wasn't even there. I turned toward my parents, my voice shaking. Did he forget me? Father's expression didn't change. He made his decisions.
But he loved me, I whispered.
He told me I'd always have something from him. Mother exhaled sharply, tired of the scene. Elena, stop making everything dramatic.
It's not about love. It's about responsibility.
Lily represents the family's future. You've chosen a different path. The lawyer cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the tension. Grandmother Rosie's eyes filled with tears.
This isn't right, she said softly.
He never meant to leave her out. Father snapped. Mother, please. Let's not make this sentimental. That was when the weight of it all, the years of silence, the lies, the careful cruelty, finally broke me.
I stood up, my voice trembling but loud.
You didn't just erase my name from a will. You've been erasing me my entire life.
Mother's tone turned icy. Don't be ungrateful, Elena.
Everything we've done was to protect you from your own mistakes. Protect me.
I laughed bitterly. You hid my scholarship letter. You lied about my acceptance.
You turned my dreams into a family embarrassment.
The room went silent.
Lily looked away, guilt flickering for just a moment, then gone.
I stepped closer to my father.
Tell me, Dad, did you ask him to remove my name?
He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence was louder than truth.
Grandmother Rose whispered, Child, leave before they take more from you. I looked around that grand, hollow house. The portraits, the trophies, the fake smiles.
You already did, I said quietly.
And as I walked out that door, I didn't realize it yet, but that was the last time I'd be part of their picture-perfect family. The next time they'd see my face, it would be on every television screen in the country. After the will reading, something inside me cracked, but I didn't let them see it. I told myself I could endure their silence, their rejection. But over time, that silence grew louder, uglier. It started with invitations that never reached me. Family gatherings that I only found out about through social media. Smiling pictures, captions that read the perfect Marsh family.
I wasn't tagged. I wasn't even mentioned.
When I finally confronted Mother about it, she said calmly, Oh, you wouldn't have enjoyed it, dear. Everyone there is successful.
Her tone cut deeper than any insult.
Still, I tried to stay close, hoping time would soften their hearts.
But it only made things worse.
At Lily's engagement party, a grand event filled with gold decorations and shallow laughter, I showed up wearing a simple blue dress.
I thought it looked elegant.
Mother looked me up and down, forced a smile, and whispered, Next time, check the dress code.
We're not doing minimalism. Lily laughed under her breath.
Her fiancé, Daniel, looked confused but said nothing. Later that evening, as the guests toasted to Lily's future, Father took the microphone. His speech was polished, proud, and full of rehearsed charm. My wife and I have always been blessed with one perfect daughter, one who reflects our values, our name, and our pride.
The crowd clapped. I froze.
His words weren't just a compliment, they were a declaration that I didn't exist.
I felt the room tilt slightly.
People glanced at me, whispering behind their glasses. My cheeks burned, but I stayed still. I smiled, the same fake smile they'd taught me, until my jaw trembled. When the dinner ended, I found myself outside, standing in the cold air behind the venue. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry. Then I heard footsteps. It was Grandmother Rose. She placed her frail hand on my shoulder. You don't deserve their cruelty, child. I exhaled shakily. They pretend I'm a stranger, Grandma. And I keep showing up, like it'll change.
She looked at me with sadness. The truth can't live long under lies.
One day, it will burst through. Maybe you'll be the one to make it happen. I didn't answer, but something about her words stayed with me. A few weeks later, she passed away. At her funeral, Father and mother stood in front of the crowd, giving another perfect speech about family legacy and respect.
They spoke as if they were saints.
I wanted to scream. When it was my turn to speak, mother whispered sharply, "Keep it short.
Don't make it about you." But I did.
I stepped up to the microphone and said, "Grandmother Rose was the only person in this family who saw me, not for my name, but for my heart." The silence in the room was heavy.
Father's eyes burned with quiet rage. Mother's face was frozen in a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes.
After the service, Father pulled me aside. His voice was low, threatening. "You embarrassed us today. Don't ever do that again." That was the first time I looked him straight in the eye and didn't lower my head. "Then stop giving me reasons to."
He turned away, his jaw tight. But I saw it. Fear. Just a flicker. Because for the first time, he realized I wasn't their silent shadow anymore.
Something inside me had shifted, and once that change began, there was no turning back. And they were about to find out. The daughter they erased was no longer afraid to be seen. I used to think my family couldn't hurt me any deeper than they already had. I was wrong. It happened on a warm evening in June, Lily's wedding week.
The entire city seemed to glow for her.
Every billboard, every social page, every conversation in our circle revolved around Lily Marsh, the bride of the season.
And me? I was barely invited.
The card came late, unsigned, delivered by a housemaid. Even then, I told myself maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they still wanted me there, even just as a sister, not as the family disgrace. But the truth arrived before the ceremony even began. When I reached the venue, an extravagant garden wrapped in white roses and gold lights, I noticed the seating board at the entrance. The Marsh family table listed every name but mine.
I scanned it twice, heart pounding. Nothing.
"Excuse me," I asked one of the attendants quietly. "There should be a seat for Elena Marsh." She looked at her clipboard, then at me, hesitant. "I'm sorry. Your name isn't listed anywhere."
Some guests nearby turned to look. I felt their eyes like needles on my skin.
My palms trembled, but I smiled. "It's fine," I whispered. "Must be a mistake." Then I heard laughter, familiar, sharp, deliberate. My mother stood a few feet away, holding a champagne glass. "Elena," she said sweetly, "we assumed you wouldn't want to stay long. We didn't plan for a table."
Her words were sugar-coated poison.
Lily appeared beside her, radiant in her bridal gown, smirking slightly. "You can stand with the press section if you like," she added, voice dripping with mock concern. "They are doing a family segment for the magazine." It took me a second to process it. The press section. They had reduced me to an outsider at my own sister's wedding. I forced a smile, holding back tears. "You've really perfected cruelty," I said softly. Mother's tone sharpened. "Don't start drama here, Elena. Tonight is about Lily, not your emotions."
That was the moment something broke beyond repair.
I turned to leave, but before I could, Father appeared, perfectly groomed, holding a glass of whiskey, his expression unreadable. "You should be grateful we even invited you," he said coldly. "Let this be your closure." I stared at him, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. "Closure?" I whispered. "You erased me from every photo, every story, and now, from the family table."
He didn't flinch. "You chose your path, Elena.
Don't blame us for walking hours." Then, as if it were rehearsed, he turned his back to me, just like they all had, for years. I walked away, slowly, my heels crunching against the gravel path. I didn't cry until I reached the street outside, where no one could see me. The night air was heavy, the music from the garden fading behind me. That was the loneliest walk of my life. Every step felt like a goodbye, not just to them, but to the person I had been, the one who kept forgiving. I went back to my small apartment, sat on the floor, and stared at my reflection in the dark window. My makeup was ruined, but my eyes looked different. There was pain, yes, but also something else. A quiet fire. I remembered Grandmother Rosie's words, "The truth can't live long under lies. One day, it will burst through." For the first time, I understood what she meant. They had taken my place, my name, my dignity, but they couldn't take the truth. The truth was still mine. And truth, when spoken aloud, has power. That night, I opened my old laptop, the one I use for freelance writing, and began to type. At first, it was just a confession, A release of everything I'd bottled up. The memories, the humiliation, the erasure. I wrote about families that destroy their own children in the name of perfection.
I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to.
The story spoke for itself. As the words filled the screen, something inside me shifted. The fear began to fade, replaced by purpose.
I thought I had lost everything that night.
But in truth, I'd found the one thing they could never control: my voice. I closed my laptop, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, they wanted to erase me. Now, they'll remember me. And that was the night the daughter they erased stopped crying and started fighting back. After that wedding night, I stopped pretending sorrow and started learning strategy.
Grief had hollowed me out, and into that hollow I poured work.
I traded broken silence for quiet steps, small, steady moves that stitched my courage back together. First, I rebuilt myself on paper. I dug through old boxes for anything that proved I had been here: report cards, scholarship letters, photos tucked behind frames, the article I'd written that mother set by the salt shaker. Grandmother Rose had kept a few things in her drawer. Her passing felt like a theft and a gift: a few battered receipts, a condolence letter, a postcard with my name in her shaky handwriting. Each scrap became evidence that I had once mattered. Noah became my quiet anchor. He taught me how to turn emotion into narrative. People listen to truth when it's sharp and simple, he said, handing me coffee as dawn broke over my tiny desk. Hit them where they can't ignore it. I learned to write headlines that cut, not scream.
Then came the practical pieces.
I opened old email accounts, tracked down forgotten contacts from internships, and reached out to a producer I'd once admired, Mr. Dalton, whose show featured real people and real wounds. He remembered my freelance pieces and didn't judge the past. He asked the right question: are you ready to tell everything on camera?
My stomach dropped.
I was terrified, but I felt steadier than I had in years.
Yes, I said, voice small and iron true. But I need control of the story.
No edits that soften the truth. Ava Coleman, the journalist who later became my ally, found me through a byline.
She offered legal contacts and a calm brutality I'd never known.
You don't want to ruin them, you want to undo what they did, she told me. Expose the pattern. We mapped a timeline: the hidden scholarship, the stolen inheritance, the public lies. Ava dug up public records. Noah interviewed old colleagues. Mr. Dalton promised airtime during a prime segment. Every fact we gathered felt like an added weight in my hand, heavy with consequence, heavy with justice. But revenge had to be more than facts. It had to be undeniable. So we planned for witnesses: a former housekeeper who'd kept a stash of letters, a lawyer who confirmed the will's revisions, and an old friend of Grandmother Rose who remembered private conversations. I learned to hold the shame and turn it into testimony. I rehearsed my voice until my hands stopped shaking. I practiced saying my name aloud, clean and steady: Elena Marsh. There were nights I wanted to stop. Fear pressed against my ribs, fear of destroying family, fear of being the woman who broke everything she touched. What if I become what they accuse me of? I asked Noah once, late, while the city hummed below our windows. He looked at me like I was made of sunlight and said, "You're not them. You're the one who survived them." The plan took shape like a map to a place I had avoided for years. We would time the broadcast to a night when the Marshes were in public, when their reputation was polished, when their defense would be weakest. The goal wasn't to humiliate for sport, it was to make the truth unavoidable. I spent weeks perfecting the sequence: proof, witnesses, my testimony, and then silence, allowing the evidence to speak louder than my anger. Each step felt dangerous. Every call, every document risked a shut door or a lawsuit.
But danger was part of the cure.
On the morning of the broadcast, I sat with a folder of papers in my lap and breathed slowly. My fingers trembled, but my resolve did not. Ava's voice over the phone was steady. Mr. Dalton's team was ready. Noah squeezed my hand. "Tonight," I whispered, touching the photos I'd brought, "they will hear my name." And then the final doubt arrived, soft and cold. Could I really go through with exposing the people who gave me life?
The lights went down. The cameras were primed. The world waited.
Tonight, it will be truth against their silence, if I can find the courage to speak it. The night of the broadcast arrived like a storm that had been brewing for years. It was Lily's first anniversary gala, a glittering charity event hosted by my parents, broadcast live on national television. The same people who once denied my existence now stood under golden lights, speaking about family unity and legacy. The hypocrisy burned brighter than the chandeliers above them. From the control room of the TV studio, I watched them on the monitors, calm, smiling, rehearsed. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ava's voice came through the headset. "You're live in 7 minutes. Once we start, there's no going back."
I took a deep breath. "Good," I said softly. "I never planned to go back." The countdown began.
The show title appeared on screens across the country. Erased, the daughter they denied. At first, my parents didn't notice. They were mid-speech, addressing the ballroom audience. Then the massive LED backdrop flickered, and my face appeared. My voice filled the hall. "My name is Elena Marsh, the daughter they pretended never existed."
The room fell silent. Glasses froze mid-air. Every camera turned.
Father's hand tightened around the microphone. Mother's smile evaporated. Years ago, my recorded narration continued. My parents built their perfect image by removing the piece of the family that didn't fit. They hid my scholarship letter, erased my inheritance, and denied my name.
But truth doesn't die in silence. It waits. Gasps rippled through the crowd.
On screen, photos appeared. Evidence, letters, interviews. A picture of my scholarship acceptance, emails from my mother to the lawyer, voice messages of their deliberate erasure. Richard's voice cracked for the first time in years.
"Turn it off. Now."
But the staff didn't move. They'd been instructed by the network to let it run uninterrupted. My voiceover continued. "I spent years believing I was unworthy. But I've learned, respect is not something you beg for. It's something you reclaim when truth finally stands tall." Ava turned to me in the control room, eyes wide. "They are panicking."
I watched my father storm off stage, shouting at technicians. Cameras followed.
The audience didn't look away. They were witnessing the fall of the Marsh illusion. Then, the screen cut from my narration to live feed. Me, sitting in the studio chair, facing the nation. I looked straight into the lens. "You taught me to hide my shame," I said slowly. "But it was never mine to carry. You called me a burden, but I became the story you can't control." The control room was silent except for the sound of my breathing through the mic. Back at the gala, Mother stepped up to the podium, trembling. This is manipulation. She's bitter." "No," I interrupted, my voice echoing from every speaker in the hall. "I'm free." For a long moment, no one moved. Then someone in the audience began to clap. Another joined. Soon, the entire room, their business partners, old friends, journalists, applauded.
Not for the Marsh family. For me.
The cameras caught it all, the cracks in their poise, the shame on their faces, the undeniable truth shining brighter than their lies. Richard's expression turned blank, distant. The man who'd once spoken about reputation had finally lost his own. Lily stood frozen behind them, mascara streaking down her face. For the first time, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Ava whispered from beside me, "You did it." I didn't feel triumph. Just peace, the kind that comes when you finally stopped running from ghosts. On live television, I ended my story with the same words I'd whispered years ago into the dark. They tried to bury me in silence, but I grew roots in the truth. Then the lights dimmed, and the broadcast faded to black. In that silence, heavy, breathless, infinite, I knew the world had just seen everything they worked a lifetime to hide. For the first time, I wasn't the erased daughter. I was the truth they could never bury. The night of the broadcast arrived like a storm that had been brewing for years. It was Lily's first anniversary gala, a glittering charity event hosted by my parents, broadcast live on national television. The same people who once denied my existence now stood under golden lights, speaking about family unity and legacy. The hypocrisy burned brighter than the chandeliers above them. From the control room of the TV studio, I watched them on the monitors, calm, smiling, rehearsed. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ava's voice came through the headset. "You're live in 7 minutes. Once we start, there's no going back."
I took a deep breath. "Good," I said softly. "I never planned to go back." The countdown began.
The show title appeared on screens across the country. Erased, the daughter they denied. At first, my parents didn't notice. They were mid-speech, addressing the ballroom audience. Then the massive LED backdrop flickered, and my face appeared. My voice filled the hall. "My name is Elena Marsh, the daughter they pretended never existed."
The room fell silent. Glasses froze mid-air. Every camera turned.
Father's hand tightened around the microphone. Mother's smile evaporated. Years ago, my recorded narration continued. My parents built their perfect image by removing the piece of the family that didn't fit. They hid my scholarship letter, erased my inheritance, and denied my name.
But truth doesn't die in silence. It waits. Gasps rippled through the crowd.
On screen, photos appeared. Evidence, letters, interviews. A picture of my scholarship acceptance, emails from my mother to the lawyer, voice messages of their deliberate erasure. Richard's voice cracked for the first time in years.
Turn it off. Now.
But the staff didn't move. They'd been instructed by the network to let it run uninterrupted. My voiceover continued. I spent years believing I was unworthy. But I've learned, respect is not something you beg for. It's something you reclaim when truth finally stands tall. Ava turned to me in the control room, eyes wide. They are panicking.
I watched my father storm offstage, shouting at technicians. Cameras followed.
The audience didn't look away. They were witnessing the fall of the Marsh illusion. Then, the screen cut from my narration to live feed. Me, sitting in the studio chair, facing the nation. I looked straight into the lens. You taught me to hide my shame, I said slowly. But it was never mine to carry. You called me a burden, but I became the story you can't control. The control room was silent except for the sound of my breathing through the mic. Back at the gala, Mother stepped up to the podium, trembling. This is manipulation. She's bitter. No, I interrupted, my voice echoing from every speaker in the hall. I'm free. For a long moment, no one moved. Then someone in the audience began to clap. Another joined. Soon, the entire room, their business partners, old friends, journalists, applauded.
Not for the Marsh family. For me.
The cameras caught it all, the cracks in their poise, the shame on their faces, the undeniable truth shining brighter than their lies. Richard's expression turned blank, distant. The man who'd once spoken about reputation had finally lost his own. Lily stood frozen behind them, mascara streaking down her face. For the first time, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Ava whispered from beside me, You did it. I didn't feel triumph. Just peace, the kind that comes when you've finally stopped running from ghosts. On live television, I ended my story with the same words I'd whispered years ago into the dark. They tried to bury me in silence, but I grew roots in the truth. Then the lights dimmed, and the broadcast faded to black. In that silence, heavy, breathless, infinite, I knew the world had just seen everything they worked a lifetime to hide. For the first time, I wasn't the erased daughter. I was the truth they could never bury. When the lights faded and the cameras stopped rolling, the silence that followed was unlike any I had ever known, not heavy, not painful, but peaceful. For years, silence had been my punishment. Now, it was my victory. I walked out of the studio into the cool night air. The city seemed still, as if holding its breath after the storm. My reflection shimmered faintly in the glass doors, tired eyes, trembling hands, but a calm that ran deep. For the first time, I didn't see the girl begging to be seen. I saw the woman who had made herself impossible to ignore. My phone buzzed endlessly, messages, calls, notifications exploding across the screen.
I didn't open a single one. Let them talk.
Let them finally say my name, even if in shock or shame. They'd spoken lies for years. The truth deserved its moment to breathe. Later that night, I stood by the sea. The wind carried the faint echo of applause from somewhere far behind me. I closed my eyes and let it fade. The revenge that once burned like fire had turned into quiet embers of clarity. Ava joined me a few minutes later, her coat pulled tight against the breeze.
They are all over the news, she said softly.
Your parents, Lily, the media's tearing through everything. I didn't smile.
Truth has its own way of settling scores, I replied.
She looked at me, searching, almost worried. Do you regret it?
I thought about that for a long moment. The years of silence.
The endless dinners where I sat invisible. The betrayal that had torn me open.
Then I shook my head slowly. No.
I regret ever believing I needed their love to exist. The waves rolled in, soft and rhythmic. I realized that revenge hadn't healed me, truth had. Speaking it, living it, refusing to carry their lies any longer. Days turned into weeks. The Marsh name began to crumble. Sponsors withdrew. Journalists unearthed more deceit, and the perfect image shattered beyond repair.
I didn't gloat. I didn't need to.
Justice, when it comes naturally, doesn't need witnesses. One afternoon, a letter arrived, my mother's handwriting, trembling and uneven. It wasn't an apology, it was confusion, desperation. "Why would you do this to us?" she had written. I placed the letter back in its envelope and whispered to the empty room. "I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourself."
That was the last time I ever spoke of them.
I moved to a small coastal town a few months later, where no one knew the name Marsh. I started teaching at a local art center, helping children who'd been told they weren't enough. Every time one of them smiled at their own creation, I saw a reflection of the girl I used to be, the one who had once needed someone to say, "You matter." And maybe that was the real victory, not in exposing them, but in reclaiming myself. Before leaving the city for good, I visited my old family home one last time. The house stood cold and hollow, curtains drawn, silence thick inside. I placed a single note at the gate, 5 words that carried all the weight of my journey. "You can't erase the truth." As I walked away, the wind caught my hair, carrying those words back toward the place that had once broken me.
I didn't look back. I didn't need to.
Because dignity isn't found in being loved by others. It's found in loving yourself after the world tries to convince you not to.